As of 2013, lemurs have been declared one of the world's most endangered mammal species. Aside from small populations in neighboring islands, lemurs are an endemic species and therefore are exclusively located in Madagascar. The threat to the lemur's very survival is linked to the extensive deforestation of their only significant habitat range in the world, Madagascar. Almost all of the flora and fauna of this island nation is endemic, which speaks to the immediacy of the situation. If this environment is not preserved, it is predicted that lemurs will be driven to extinction within the next 25 years. One endangered lemur species, the ring-tailed lemur, has experienced a greater than 50% reduction in population in the last 3 generations. This is only one species out of the 103 known lemur species. 91% of the 103 known lemur species are threatened. 23 of the species are considered critically endangered, 52 are endangered, and 19 are vulnerable according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species. The table shows how the amount of endangered species in 2012 has drastically changed since 2005. It shows an increase of vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered species. Without any intervention in Madagascar, these numbers are only going to continue increasing until lemurs are completely wiped off of the map. Since 37 more species of lemurs have been discovered since 2005, it has been realized that there are many more that are considered endangered and critically endangered than previously thought. Much of the increase in endangered lemurs can be attributed to deforestation of the rainforest where they live. Efforts to save the lemur populations have largely been stymied by 3 critical factors: the illegal pet trade, poaching for the bushmeat trade, and the logging trade. These factors have been cited as causes for the decline in these species numbers. However, the leading factor by far is the illegal logging trade. Lemurs are arboreal and require dense forests for their survival. The rosewood trade supplies a heavy demand in East Asia, most notably China. An organization known as the Rosewood Mafia has been the most prolific threat to the dense forests of this small island nation. This group is steadily exploiting the country's most valuable resource by methodically cutting down rosewood trees for export. None of their activities are sanctioned by the government, and the local population does not benefit from this criminal organization in any way. However, it is the lemurs who are suffering the most from the dramatic effects of this form of deforestation. Lemurs live in small social groups and depend on the forest for food, shelter, and social dynamics. Also, each social group requires its own designated range to live and reproduce. The people of Madagascar are among the most impoverished in the world. The World Bank's poverty assessment estimates that over 70% of the population can be defined as poor, while more than 50% are extremely poor. The high poverty rate in Madagascar leads to the exploitation of lemur populations for economic gain. A regulated rosewood trade could provide a lucrative market by providing jobs to the people of Madagascar. If the lemur populations are to endure and even begin to rise, alternate means of income will be necessary. We believe that laws and regulations of the logging industry are not enough. The aforementioned mafia groups are taking advantage of a country that has been caught up in political upheaval for decades. While the government has continued to go through changes in leadership, aid from other nations has halted. Without a strong commitment to enforcing official policies like bans on the exporting of rosewood, it was all too easy for people to comb through the forests and haul out whatever they could sell for profit. The areas of protected forest are scattered around the perimeter of the island and are too small to effectively balance the high levels of deforestation. All of the chaos and resulting changes in government policies have enabled them to operate in both the logging of rosewood and the harvesting of the lemur species. One notable change occurred when Andry Rajoelina took over the country with the help of renegade troops in 2009. This caused other donor nations to suspend environmental aid and led to Madagascar operating on what was seen as an inadequate budget. With the smaller budgets, authorities were finding it too difficult to control these illegal activities. This photograph shows a cross-section of a rosewood trunk. As you can see, the beautiful color and grain pattern of this rare hardwood is the reason for the high demand. At the current rate of deforestation, the beautiful species will no longer exist. The left map shows the rainforests of Madagascar in 1896, prior to European colonization in the country. The right map illustrates the remaining rainforest as of the year 2000. The difference that is visible between the two maps is a direct result of deforestation. The above maps support the fact that approximately 90% of all forests in Madagascar have been destroyed since European colonization. Although this map is slightly outdated, the rate of deforestation remains high to this day. Much of the biodiversity of the island is reliant on these forests to live. Not only does deforestation result in habitat loss for many species of lemurs, but it also leads to environmental problems. Two major environmental issues stemming from the loss of forests are soil erosion and climate change, which also affect the lemur species living in this area. This map illustrates the already protected areas of Madagascar, proposed conservation sites, and the remaining forest outside of those conservation areas. As we can tell by looking at the map, a very small portion of the island is already protected. A much greater proportion of the map is made up of the proposed conservation sites. This demonstrates that there is still much work that needs to be done in protecting the forests of Madagascar. This is why it is important to educate the general public on the issue of conservation. The United States has the means and resources available to help stop the destruction of a truly unique ecosystem. It would be criminal to allow an environment such as this to vanish while steps could be taken to preserve it for generations to come. In the process of aiding Madagascar in the preservation of its natural resources, you could also help to restore a nation's proud national identity. The most evident solution is to provide aid in halting the export of rosewood and the island's endemic species. A moratorium could be placed on rosewood in the manufacturing of products by American companies. Creating an entirely new market could alleviate the need to export rosewood in such large quantities. Many sustainable hardwood alternatives could replace rosewood as a commodity. A solid replacement for the rosewood that has already been lost could be bamboo. Bamboo is a sturdy grass that grows much faster than rosewood and has a tensile strength that is as strong as concrete. While bamboo may not completely fill the void left by deforestation, it would produce a steady supply of timber that can cover applications such as building materials, a food source, a combustible energy source, and substitute habitats for the lemurs. Over time, the rosewood forests could be revived with the introduction of this newly introduced plant and raise the proportion of forest cover remaining. The other side of this issue are the lemurs themselves. The illegal pet trade is no more evident anywhere in the world than the United States. Wealthy citizens purchase these animals as status symbols and accessories without understanding how a captive environment is not meant for these creatures. Funding must be increased to add more inspectors at known ports of delivery where these animals are being transferred on their way to American and East Asian destinations. With increased enforcement, the price tag on these animals would initially skyrocket, ultimately leading to a decrease in both demand and supply of these endangered animals. Finally, strong captive breeding programs could be set up with the goal to reintroduce these animals back into their natural environments. If captured and bred while in captivity, the decline in lemur populations could be stabilized. This method could be greatly effective in preventing the most critically endangered species from going extinct, assuming that the previously mentioned resolutions are put into place.